Hey everybody, welcome to my Suburban Oasis. My name is Soleil and I garden in Zone 5B in mid-Michigan, and it is a beautiful day out and we have gotten a little bit of rain and things have perked up and the grass has turned even greener. So I'm looking forward to taking you around and showing you what's happening in the garden. Let's take a look. Well, here we are up on the deck, just a little bit away from the potager garden. And we have our raspberry bush getting ready to put on some fruit. And I harvested the snapdragons like we talked about last week and enjoyed them in a really beautiful bouquet. And then I also have these lovely pots that are just living their best life over here with the geraniums and the lobelia. And I think I'm going to grow those from seed again next year because, boy, they sure are fantastic. They were easy to grow and they've really earned their keep in the garden this year. Now, I want to take you over here. And somebody commented last time that they found it helpful for me to kind of do a pan of the garden so that they could see kind of how everything was situated in the garden. So if you look over to the left off of our deck is where the long border is. And please excuse our towels and, you know, that kind of thing. But we're an active family and out and about, so we don't always have an opportunity to put things away after they dry. We have the back woodland garden along the back there, and just to the right over here is where we have the half moon garden, back behind which is the shed and the potager. So let's kind of take a stroll through the potager today and see how that's looking. But first we'll just stop over here and take a look at how big this elephant ear is getting. It is quite magnificent. It is bigger than the pot that it is in, and I'm thrilled by all the growth it's put on. Definitely much bigger than it was last year, and since I overwintered it, I think that's what makes a big difference. As they grow each year, they get bigger and bigger. So this little spot where we planted the weigela and the sedum last week is looking really good, and we have the Johnson blue geranium that's probably in need of a cutback right now, but it's still quite pretty. We have lots of strawberries and blooms happening in the strawberry bed here. And I just wanted to show you that my smoke tree, which is a smoke bush, but I've pruned it up into a smoke tree. Hopefully you can see that. It is looking really good. It's actually started to fill out this year. And so that's kind of what I am going for with that. And beneath the smoke tree, we have some beautiful ornamental oregano that's blooming right now. This is the Kent Beauty oregano, and there's several different kinds of ornamental oregano, but this one is really, really good at coming back every year for me, and I think it's absolutely beautiful. Great for bouquets, it's wonderful for pollinators, and it's just gorgeous. And those are some beautiful little pink bracts that come there with that limey pink. It kind of reminds me of those colors of like the little lime hydrangeas and those kind of things in the fall. So all those snapdragons that we planted are putting on some really good buds, you guys. And I pulled out some of my garlic. It is just dried. So I'm getting ready to take that in. You can see I've let my parsley go to seed, but I think that's absolutely beautiful. I've used some of that in arrangements in the house for, you know, enjoying flowers. And then these alliums are just about ready to go over. So they will be setting seed soon. The fig has continued to grow, but no figs yet. I don't know if I'll get any yet, but I'm definitely keeping an eye out for them. The drought-tolerant irises and sedum over here look great. They have never faltered this whole time during all of the drought. So I highly recommend bearded irises to folks if they're looking for some type of more drought-resistant plants. And over here, the pink mink, just look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? I love the way the sun is shining through it right now, and they are just so dainty and beautiful. I love how they're spilling down after they grew so tall. So this garden bed is looking pretty good. I do need to cut back the catmint still, and I haven't come through and gotten the foxglove. I've definitely been focused on some of the other garden beds, but you can start to see the little lime hydrangeas back here are starting to put on some good growth that looks like they're putting on their buds. So I'm glad to see that. This is only their second year in the garden. And I wasn't sure how they would respond to being in that particular spot because they get morning sun, but not afternoon sun. So we'll continue to see how they do. But the Pinky Winky hydrangea, on the other hand, my goodness, this one is putting all sorts of buds on now, and I cannot wait. This one has such large panicles on it, and it turns such wonderful shades of dark pink. It is just stunning. I did get my phlox cut back, so I think this looks a lot cleaner over here, doesn't it? I think it just looks a whole lot nicer and tidier. Now we may get another bloom on those phlox. It's the Pinkadot and the blush that I cut back. But now we're starting to see some of the tiny little blooms that come on this coralberry bush. This one is by First Editions. This one is called Candy. And the little pink berries that are on in the fall definitely look like candy. So I did cut back this Boom Chocolata geranium. I just followed the stems right back down to the ground, and I think it will probably put out some additional blooms this year. Those blooms were such a beautiful light purple color. I just love them. And this is a Strawberry Sundae hydrangea, and it has lots of buds all over it right now. The hydrangeas in this area of the garden do not perform as strongly as the ones on the other side because these just get a little bit of morning sun, and then they also get a little bit of blockage from the south. So they definitely are more of a part sun area, maybe even part shade. So they don't do or perform quite as significantly as the ones on the other side of the yard. We are starting to get some buds on these lilies as well here, and it's quite great to see. These are going to be white blooms. Now the hydrangea that's back here also is not performing that great, and I don't know if it's just because I moved it at the end of last year or if it's getting too much shade. I'm not sure. I am going to come through and like trim up this plum tree so that we get a little bit more just kind of lift that bottom layer of branches that you see there so that we get a little bit more sunshine and rain through here. And this hydrangea looks gorgeous, and the cage that it's in is working really, really well to help hold the blooms up. We've definitely had some pretty good storms, and it has gone through them very, very well. This is an arborescens type, and it is part of the Seaside Serenade collection, and it is called Bar Harbor. So probably almost as big as the Annabelle hydrangea. And here's the Pink Diamonds hydrangea blooming. This one has a little bit more of a lace cap type bloom than some of the other hydrangeas, which I actually like, because on paniculata hydrangeas, if they aren't really kind of that lace cap, the pollinators are not able to get as much out of them because there's more sterile florets on them than actual flowers that have what they need. The ferns are looking great, and you can see we're starting to get that extra flush of foliage out of those pulmonaria that typically comes in June, but because the rains were so late and we had that drought, it's come much later in the season. So I think this area looks great. I'm looking forward to next year how this hydrangea performs in this area and being able to take some of the hostas that are in front of it out. Not completely, but just kind of to give it a little bit more space so that the hydrangea can really shine in this area. Now I do want to show you a little bit more of the half moon garden. So we're also getting some blooms on these cuttings that I had taken from the Proven Winners Incredible hydrangeas, and I took them and planted them last year. So this is really their first full year of growing on in this spot, and they're doing really good. They overwintered and put on lots of new growth, so I'm thrilled with that. Now we have our Wizard of Oz, that is the Veronica down here, and wouldn't you know it, it's really in a similar color family to the penstemon that we just recently planted, and I'm loving that. I just think it's so cool when you find plants that are, you know, different, but they also have such a similar bloom color, because you can get kind of a different texture from them, but you can also kind of meld them together. I don't know if that makes any sense at all, but hopefully it does a little bit. And then we have another incredible over here, which is getting a little bit more shade. It's a little bit further behind, I think, in its blooms, but it definitely has more growth than the other one put on. So really, really great. All right, let's take a look at the hibiscus here, because I'm excited to report that they are putting on buds, and not only are they at the tips, but they're also already showing along the centers of the stems as well. So that is so exciting. And then if you recall, we cut back our Red Riding Hood penstemon, and look who is back. Isn't that pretty? Now again, it's not as strong of a bloom as the first time, but you can see it's definitely putting out some new color. It's just starting to open up again. Everything in the woodland garden is doing quite well, with the exception of one plant, and I will show you that in just a minute. So this garden bed is looking rather prolific. We do need to come through and cut back some of these scabiosa. They are starting to put out some new blooms though, even without having cut them back. So definitely a very prolific bloomer. And our jet stream hydrangea is looking beautiful, and all of our hostas are starting to put out blooms. I mean, this week, just all of a sudden, boom, they all shot up like that. It was pretty crazy. I have come through and given my rhododendrons that are in this bed a little shot of some acid, gosh, what is it? It's like acetone. I can't remember right now, but it's part of the Plant Tone series by Espoma, and it's just organic, and it helps to provide, it's a soil acidifier anyways, because you can see that there's a little bit of veining happening on these that kind of shows that they're getting a little bit of chlorosis and not being able to maybe take up the iron, or the pH is off for them. Lots of big buds on this pinky winky hydrangea as well. So, and this one, I was kind of concerned about it last year, thinking it was going to be, you know, kind of weak in its performance where I planted it, but it really is much more robust this year and healthy, and I think it's finally got its roots set in the ground better. So I'm excited to see that one bloom this year. And this sitting area is gorgeous. I mean, just think about sitting right next to these beautiful big white blooms on this oak leaf hydrangea. The pollinators definitely love coming through these, and if you can see right in through the top there, there's lots of the flowers on the inside that they can go down in and get, and they definitely do. I see the bees crawl right in there. I'm thinking about taking out this music box rose because it didn't do super fantastic last year, and this year it's not doing a whole lot better. I think somebody else wrote in the comments that they had a similar experience, like it was just kind of weak and spindly. So I definitely don't want something right in the front of my garden bed that doesn't look great. Some of the other roses, though, like this Grandma's Blessings rose, is putting on some really nice new growth after we got these rains. It's definitely made a big difference. Now, I did come through and pull out the foxglove that were in this garden bed because they really were shading out this little haughty hydrangea, and it does need sun, obviously, in order to set buds because it's a panicle hydrangea. So now that it's had this space and it's gotten some good water, it's definitely put on quite a bit of new growth. We're starting to see some of the astilbes bloom. And the brunnera is really filling out. Now here is the plant that is struggling a little right now. I've got two pulmonaria right here that actually have powdery mildew. So this is a result of us having extremely dry conditions. And that kind of stressed this plant like super duper dry. These are right up obviously by this stump, and so it doesn't get as much water even as the ones that are right next to it. So they have really struggled. Now the thing about powdery mildew is it can spread in your garden, but most of the time it just makes things look really ugly, and it doesn't kill them. So that's the good news. The bad news is nobody really wants an ugly garden, right? So this Virginia is looking really pretty. That's the ripple effect Virginia that we planted. And the jet stream hydrangea here is also blooming really beautifully. Just look at that with the hosta and the Virginia. All that gorgeous foliage. Foliage really is so important in the garden. I mean, we can plant lots and lots of things that bloom, but the blooms only last for so long, even if it is a plant like a hydrangea that blooms for a couple of months. You know, most plants don't do that. All of the grass is filling in really, really nicely, and I'm just going to show you over here. I did end up planting my last one, Cape Lookout hydrangea, and it's right here next to this other one. It has not put on any blooms yet. It does have at least one bud that I have seen on it. It was definitely being kept more in the shade as I decided where I wanted to plant it. And one of the things that I think about these hydrangeas is that they look nice when they're planted kind of in groups to be a little bit bigger of a show. Now, I'm not sure if these will reach their full, height and width in my garden or not, but if they do and I need to move them a little further apart, I have plenty of space to do that. I just like to make sure that the ground is covered as much as possible. But isn't that pretty? Just look at that little combination of the fern and the violets and the hydrangea bloom. So cute. Everything's just looking nice and healthy again. We have the Queen of Hearts brunnera next to this Muckgenia. And over here, the Banana Cream 2 daisy is blooming. I like it very much when we have the ones that are kind of open and the ones that are all the way open, so you get kind of that whole palette of between white and cream and that buttery yellow. After the rain, we definitely got some decent growth on these heuchera. They had been just kind of sitting there doing nothing at all this year, but after that rain we definitely got some. And then we have the classic coral dianthus over here. The other one's not blooming at this point, so we'll see how those do. I have seen some rabbit damage in my garden this week. They definitely have gotten some of my phlox, my fall flowering phlox. They've eaten a lot of the foliage on them. This garden bed just continues to look quite wonderful and healthy and very colorful. And the pollinators absolutely love the itty bitty teeny tiny blooms on these heucheras. It's so funny to watch these giant bumblebees try to get something out of such a teeny tiny flower. It's absolutely adorable. And we are so close to getting blooms on this Firelight hydrangea. I love this one. It's probably one of my favorites next to the Diamond Rouge. So many of them are great. Sometimes it's hard to compare. They all have different pros and cons. But look at this April Night Salvia. This one has been the best rebloomer for me this year. Look how dense that is. I mean, that's a second bloom. Normally, that's what your first blooms look like. So I'm really impressed by that. Now over here we have some soapwort blooming. This is Saponaria, and it is really has a nice scent on it. This is a native plant, it can spread quite a bit throughout the garden, so you have to be really careful where you plant it. We're just getting ready to get some daylilies. I thought we would have some out today, but the only one that is getting ready to bloom right here is just not quite open. It's so close. All of the daisies are still blooming really well, but I think I'm going to start coming through and doing a little bit of deadheading. And you can do that just by cutting each one of the blooms that are spent off at a time. Now let's take a look at the cannas over here. I'm wondering, you're all experienced with cannas. At what point in the summer do your cannas start to bloom? I'm wondering when to expect it. I feel like it should be sometime this month, like any day now. But I'm just curious if you guys can tell me what zone you're in and if you've grown cannas, when they bloom for you. They have definitely also put on a super huge amount of growth in terms of the number of leaves coming up from the base since the rain happened. It's quite incredible. Over here, our salvias that we cut all the way back to the ground are already starting to revive themselves. You can hardly even tell that it happened. The coneflowers right now are struggling a little bit as it was quite a bright and sunny day today, so they have kind of battened down the hatches to survive the day, but they will perk back up in about an hour. We actually might get more rain tomorrow. We could use a little more, so we'll take it. Look at this strawberry Sunday hydrangea. This is going to be so pretty. This is my biggest one. I think it's really loving its space right now. And the clematis behind it just continues to look stunning, doesn't it? Such a pretty combination. And over here we have the Let's Dance Can Do hydrangea. And just look at the color of the blooms on that. It's a really pretty, like, deep pink. I'm looking forward to seeing even more of the blooms opening on that one. And then the quickfire hydrangea is really starting to kick in its blooms, isn't it? Look at that, how pretty that is. Now, I had somebody ask me about whether I had still planned to create a standard out of this long stem that popped up a couple years ago, and I tried to look to see if I thought I could do it this spring when it would have been the best time to divide this. And unfortunately, at the base, the two stems are very, very well connected with each other, which just means that I could have lost both main trunks. So this new large one, as well as the main trunk of the smaller, shorter part of the plant. And I just wanted to keep the whole thing. I didn't want to risk that. So I decided not to do that. Now, at the base of this is this beautiful Sweet Romance lavender. And that's just blooming like crazy, and it smells so good. You can just smell it walking by it. And then all along this path, on the edge, you can see all the little heads of the allium. And some of them you can see they're just starting to get ready to bloom. Here's some right here that are opening up. Those are going to be like really pretty little pink champagne bubbles soon. We have some daylilies over here that are bloom now. More and more each day. Isn't this pretty? I think this one's called Orange Sherbet. It smells really good. It just has this really nice, soft, peachy color to it. We haven't gotten anything opening on this berry white hydrangea, but I can tell it is going to be absolutely stunning. It is smothered in buds as well. And I'm also getting some really great buds on this strawberry Sunday hydrangea, and it has some of those alliums at its base as well. Well, you can't go wrong with the incredible hydrangea. These have been in the ground here for about 2 years now. This is their second full year. And you can see we got some flopping during the period of time that we got some rain, but overall they have done really, really well. They're absolutely beautiful. We still have more blooms that are coming. And you know, if we get a little bit more of that woody structure in there over time from you know, a few years of growth, I think they'll stand up even better on their own. All right, well, let's head to the front garden and take a look out there. Let's go. So this is the 3rd year for my strawberry Sunday hydrangeas, and I think that's part of why they're doing so well and they have so many buds on them, and this is one of them. And so hopefully this one will be opening next week as well. And this part of the garden is still just looking really nice. It's got quite a bit of greenery. Ignore this little plant over here that I dug up and I'm getting rid of. But what is starting to bloom right now is our gorgeous liatris, you know, hedge right here. And I think it looks absolutely stunning. Once again, we have lots of blooms on this whole area. And the pollinators love it. They just... You know, you can walk through here and anywhere you look, you can find a cute little bee trying to find some nectar, even some little hoverflies and, you know, all of the different types of bees. Here's a little tiny one. I don't even know if you can see them on the camera. So yeah, so they are just loving this hedge right here. And we have the PG hydrangea, which is also blooming really well. This one probably is just a little bit ahead of the quick fire, but in my estimation, it's going to be fully open fairly soon. Isn't that gorgeous? I have to say, I love the creamy white blooms on the panicles, but my favorite part is when they begin to turn color. What's your favorite part? Do you grow panicle hydrangeas, and do you enjoy when they are first beginning to open and they have those full creamy white flowers, or do you prefer when they begin changing colors, or at the very end when they are kind of crispy and covered in all sorts of different colors? Now this garden is starting to open all of its blooms with the cone flowers. They are not in full bloom yet, but they will be very soon. I think next week we're going to see the full power of these echinaceas throughout this garden bed. Now you'll see I did cut back quite a few of the salvia in this garden bed in the attempt to get some reblooms. But you're also starting to see the growth of the garden mums that are perennial, and they're all covered in buds already as well. Now I did clip back my peony foliage because it does get kind of covered in black spot and different things during this time of year, and so now you can really start to see that Concord barberry underneath of this tree better. And it does need a little bit of a trim, but I'm not sure I'm going to do that this year because I don't want to do it this late in the year in July. We're just starting to see some blooms open up on this rudbeckia back here. This is the little gold star. And then we trimmed back the penstemon in this garden bed because it was beginning to go over, and it should grow back and begin to form some new blooms for us. But in the meantime, we'll be looking forward to getting more of these coneflower blooms because we have the purple coneflower. And then we also have a few of the millennium alliums down here as well. So we'll be getting some blooms from those soon. We do have some coneflowers down here that are blooming because they get that real strong southern sun and they get the heat off of these rocks. Isn't that pretty? Oh my goodness, we're even getting some mums, you guys. Do you see that? That is a mum bloom right there. And it is not even the middle of July yet. Craziness. It's probably because I didn't get a chance to trim those back and do the Chelsea chop in the mailbox area. But it looks really pretty. All right, let's look at this sunbed over here, because this one's really starting to fill out as well, even though we did a lot of cutting back. So this week I spent some time in this garden bed cutting back those salvias that were still in this garden bed that needed to be trimmed. So those will have a chance to kind of put on some new growth. And our Dreamland geranium is still looking really pretty over here. I just love the light pink blooms on that. It did take a couple of years for that to really begin to establish. This year, I think, is the first time it's really starting to look good in this garden bed and healthy. Look at these bobos. So many buds that are starting to open on them. Oh, I'm so excited. I just love like the shape of them when they open. And these are going to continue to get wider. They'll probably get, another foot or two taller and a foot or two wider at least. So they should really help to fill in some of this space and be really prolific bloomers. And I think they're going to look amazing with the backdrop of this orange rocket barberry. It's really an offsetting color combination. And we have the buds on the autumn joy sedum setting as well. Now you can see along this little walkway right here, we have that ever after Veronica. And I have to say, I really like this one, you guys. I think this one might be my favorite. It's kind of got a bit of a glow about it, doesn't it? I mean, it's like a light purple, but it's also kind of got a bluish tint to it. I just like that a lot. Now this is supposed to be a really long blooming one, and so far it's done pretty well, and I really like how it looks with these little dealy boppers right here. It's hard to get them all in the same shot, but these are the Decephalon or drumstick alliums, and I just like those color combinations. It's so fun. And even more than that, look at this trio of combinations with that allium and the Veronica, and then this beautiful goldfinch daisy that's opening. Let's get a close look at that. Do you see the beautiful frilly edges on it? It is really, really bright when it first opens, but then it begins to fade. And just look at the color on it. I love these. I'm really hoping these continue to fill out, and I'm sure that they will. This is only really their second year in the ground as well. So we have some bobo hydrangeas right in here, and I apologize if you hear like the noise from the neighbors mowing their lawn, but that's what happens in the suburbs when the temperatures cool down a little bit. People come outside and they mow their lawn and get their jobs done. You can see that the boxwood back here is really showing its variegation now. So it's no longer got that green kind of look on the new growth. It's all reverting back to that variegated foliage, which is nice. We have some of the firefly amethyst achillea right here, or yarrow. And I'm not sure why it is quite so close to this daisy. I didn't plant it that close, but apparently that's where it is growing the best. It must really like being in combination with it. It is pretty together. So the bobos over here do not look like they're as far along as the ones on the front side, but I think they get less water here, so I think that as they establish their roots better over the years, that they will continue to do more and more growth for us. So I think this border is starting to come along. It's starting to look like, you know, it was planned and there's some thought put into it, and I'm really enjoying the colors. And like I said, I hope to, you know, divide some of this daisy and probably put a little bit more of it right in this area to kind of finish out this curve. So we have our American flag out from the 4th of July this week, and when we were celebrating, and underneath of that we have this gorgeous combination of hydrangeas with the sedum and the hostas and the impatiens. And I can show you now kind of that blush pink that this Cape Lookout hydrangea takes on after, you know, the blooms are white. So they're that kind of limey green, and then they turn white, and then they fade to this like blush pink color. You guys, I am so hopeful that these will come back next year and that they will do good for me and bloom on their new wood like they're supposed to. I think they're so pretty. The azalea that I replanted over here is doing really good. In fact, I think I see it might be starting to set buds for next year already, which seems early. Usually that happens around August and not in July. The phlox have begun to go over here, but we have our pardon my cerise right here, and this is a bee balm monarda, and as you can see, the bees are enjoying that. I've been able to actually watch them. I can see them from inside my window because they're so big, these bumbles are, and they just crawl all over them and get as much as they can. And we have more blooms that are coming on both of them. So these should spread a little bit more. I just planted these last year and they were clearance plants, but they did pretty well. This one obviously better than the one on the left, but I think that because they came back, they're going to be much more robust next year. And the shade garden's doing really well. It definitely has enjoyed the rain. Everything was kind of at a standstill for a while there, just kind of holding on. And so after it rained, you start to see kind of some of the leaves that might have been on the edge of death, if you will, finally give out as the plant gets that relieving rain so they can start to put out some new growth. I'm seeing some signs that the deer have come through and bit off the tops of these flowers of these hostas. So it's definitely time to come through with some liquid fence again. Yeah, here's a good example of a plant that just really needed a lot more water and didn't do good. So this one, yeah, I'll have to come through here and clip some of that off so that it can look a little bit healthier. It'll be absolutely fine though. There's nothing, you know, really that wrong with the plant. It just got really stressed. I still haven't had a chance to come through here and prune up these sumacs, but I keep forgetting that I actually have a PG hydrangea planted right in here, and you can see it's got a couple little buds on it. And it's just kind of been engulfed by the geranium because it's not that big. So I think after this year, next year's new growth will put it up above that foliage level, and it'll begin to become a bit more of a shrub. That will make it a little bit more showy. And the same can be said for this viburnum as well. Once this starts to grow up above some of the other plants, we'll start to see a variety of different heights in here. That's one of the challenges when you have some areas of your garden that is younger. You know, you have to have a vision for like how tall or small something's going to be, and then you have to get through periods of time where things might not look like what you want them to look like because they aren't at their full height yet or their full width. Look at all this Verbena bonariensis. I think this garden bed is just so fun and whimsical right now with the lobelia and the drumstick alliums back here. So cute. We have some daylilies that are blooming back here. This is not my favorite color, but is definitely striking. It's just something that I got and I had, and it wasn't the color that I thought it was when I got it. I can't remember if I bought it bare root or how I bought it, but that's just how it turned out. Now there should have also been a hydrangea in here somewhere. I can't even see it anymore. Oh wait, here it is. It's a quick fire hydrangea. It's not looking so great. It's still alive, but obviously it's got kind of crispy during this period of time along with this geranium. So this area gets really, really hot. The sun from the western exposure beats off the brick and comes back and radiates. So it looks like that's going to be okay, especially if we get more rain, but I don't know, I guess we'll see. If not, maybe I'll find some clearance plants this fall that I can put there instead. All right, well, this concludes our garden tour for today. I hope that you enjoyed it, and thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. I enjoy all of your comments, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks so much.